Hello, I'm Philip DeVries, and I want to welcome you to this latest version of Our World Today. And with me in the studio today, it is my honor and my privilege to introduce you to a man that I last saw, we worked it out today, was about 12 years ago.
2007, yeah.
Yeah, 2007. And I want to welcome Frank Rautenbach to Our World Today, because this young man is actually a man that has been in many different movies and is someone that's been on our screens quite a lot. But today, we're just delighted that we can sit here and have a little conversation about what's going on in your life and kind of pick up the pieces from out of the past, and let's see where it all goes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
Thank you, Frank. It's really significant. I love looking at these kind of things because I see a man that's grown up, but I remember a guy that was basically, I don't think you were even a teenager when I was first introduced to you. Yeah. And that's going way back. So we want to talk about the history a little bit, because that history was where we intersected way back in the 1980s.
That's right.
I mean, I think it was actually 1988, something like that, or 87.
That's, 31 years ago?
There we go. And that was just after my youngest son, John, was born.
Yeah.
And but we became familiar with your family, and we became some of your relatives, and we were doing different things together. So talk to me about those early days. I mean, I think Sterling School was somewhere in there. Am I right?
It was close to where we lived. So, yeah we lived literally 500 yards from the Sterling School. I matriculated at Selborne College. I don't know if you know Selborne Boys School.
And our daughter was in Clarendon.
Okay, well, there you go. Yeah, so my early days in East London was pretty much taken up with surfing. I avoided anything called work, discipline, anything like that. I like to play. I like to have fun, especially in those younger days. And I think it's only later on in my life that I realized that avoiding any kind of painful scenarios was just my way of reacting to, childhood wounds, the things that, everybody goes through in life. And I discovered later on that the more I engage the pain, the better it is to find joy, as opposed to just trying to live a life of happiness. And the one lasts a little longer than the other one, actually significantly longer. So
fascinating, because you have a family that, I mean, I remember your mother, she was always a very, very outreaching kind of a person. Your dad was a doctor. And, and I can remember, there was a brother along the way.
Yeah, two older brothers and a younger sister. Yeah.
Okay, so and what are they all doing now?
My oldest brother works for Anglo. That's a big mining company.
Precisely.
So he's in IT, and the middle one works in courier business down in Cape Town. He manages a branch down there. And my sister's actually also in IT, more on the social media side with, I think, PwC. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so she's in that world. Yeah. And they're all married.
And they're very good. And your wife, her name is?
Lee. That's right.
All right.
Yeah, Lee and I met in Cape Town, when was it? 94, October 94. And she had a boyfriend and I had a girlfriend. And then February of 95, we both had broken up with our respective girlfriends and boyfriends. And then we just became really good friends.
Yeah.
For about 8 months. And then we were dating for 2 days, and then I said, I don't know what I'm doing. And then 10 days later, I said, I'd rather be with you than not. And then a month after that, we were engaged, and then 3.5 months after that, we got married.
Wow. And so did you get married in Cape Town?
We sure did, yeah. It was 24th of February, 96, yeah.
Wow. Many couples cannot even remember the day they were married. That's good.
No, I remember it pretty well. It was a good day.
Yeah, no, that is fantastic. And I think, when I look back, there was an incident that happened in 1988. Our son John was actually young child,
Yeah.
little baby still, basically, because he was, I think he was about 10 months old, something like that.
Gosh,
And-
that's young. Yeah.
But we had the kind of house, we had a 10-bedroom house in the Quigney
Wow. Wow.
in East London.
Yeah.
And we had some people that were staying with us in the house, but the one daughter that was staying there, she was responsible for watching Jono, who's become known as Jono. And,
Yeah, yeah.
and the next thing that happened, we heard this crying from outside. And John had literally fallen off the ledge down to the concrete below and was just out cold. There was not a sound coming out of him.
10 months old.
10 months old.
Yeah, because they
he
usually
was
say
bleeding.
if they're crying, it's a good sign.
That's a good sign.
Yeah.
And we just looked at this, and I can never forget the reaction that Moraine and I had at that
Yeah.
point. We literally scooped him up in our arms. We went in our car, and we said, where do we go? Let's go see your dad.
Wow.
We
Wow.
took him over. I mean, it took us
It's like
took
4
us
minutes, I think.
about
from
4
there.
minutes
Yeah, yeah.
from the Quigney over
Depending on.
to your house. And I can never forget, when your dad took him
Yeah.
in his arms.
Yeah.
Yo, it moves me to this day
Wow.
when I think about it, because he just held him like this. And the next thing you know, there was this little shudder from this little body. And the next thing, his eyes went open and he started to smile.
Wow.
And your dad just, wow.
Yeah.
That was,
I mean, because that wasn't a doctor move, I don't think.
was not a doctor move. And,
Yeah.
and it was such a powerful witness in that particular instance, but it also
Wow.
left an indelible memory. And so when we began to look at it, I mean, older, as John got a little bit older, we began to realize he's not into sports,
Right.
but he's into technology.
Okay.
We saw that at 3 years old.
Oh my gosh.
When I became
Wow.
the station manager of the TBN station in Umtata.
Oh yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
And when that happened, there was something. I saw this kid there, and I said, "We got to watch to Moraine. We got to watch our boy because he's got another direction in
ideas, yeah.
life." From the time he was 13 years old, there was one destiny in his
Yeah.
life, and we saw
That was it.
that he was involved in anything that had to do with film, with television. It was all there, and how that eventually all intertwined. Where your world, how did that come about in your
Yeah,
life?
that was crazy. I think Greg Crick, via the grapevine,
Yeah.
France, maybe connected with me while I was living in LA, because my wife and I had lived in LA for the last 11 years.
Yes.
And then they called me up and said, "Hey, do you want to meet?" And I said, "Great, let's meet." And then I remember it was a place called the Library, I think in Venice, off of Venice Main Road.
Wow.
And Greg and John came and met with them, and we hung out. And I guess that because John would have been 3 or 4 years old when I left East London.
Yeah.
So I don't think I ever knew him as an adult until that point.
Quite
And
right.
then it was great. I really enjoyed meeting with them because I was able to just kind of give them a little bit of the history of the scars of LA and of Hollywood and what you can learn and what does it look like to be a Christian within that world. What does it look like to live out your faith in a way that is powerful, not condemning or whatever the case might be. And also, I think for me, one of the things that a scripture that I love it, but it's not so great for my selfishness, is Deuteronomy 8 verse 2. And it says, "For you shall remember the Lord your God who led you through this wilderness these last 40 years to humble you and to show you what was in your heart."
Wow.
And I think he often uses places like LA, which can be a wilderness, to show you what's in your heart and to humble you. So I shared some of those stories with them, and I recall their eyes being quite big, just going like, "Oh wow, God can do that." It's like, yep.
Well, there was that intersection there, but you had the intersection here in George when you were engaged with the movie called Hansi. Now,
That's correct, yeah.
We'll get into that because there were a number of roles that you played. And did I understand, is it just a rumor, or have you also been engaged in Sieben de Lan?
I I did over 1,000 episodes.
Well, there we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
So it wasn't. I don't
Yeah, no,
watch soapies.
Yeah, no, I didn't watch it either, but I was in it. No, I was in Ceylon. I was one of the original cast members. I think there was only 12 of us when it started out, and that was February of 2000, and so I was there until 2005,
Sure.
and then had ideas of going to LA, to Los Angeles. So yeah, I was there for a long time, 4 years,
And
4 plus.
And the studios for that were in Cape Town, or was it Joburg?
Joburg. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually lived in Joburg for 6 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's fascinating when you start looking at some of the roles that have been played there, with the Hansi role and how that connected here to George. But you also were in KwaZulu-Natal when
With
you
Angus,
did with the Angus bucking with Faith Like Potatoes. And I can never forget thinking how proud I was when I was on a plane
Yeah.
going overseas, and I said, there's this movie showing Faith Like Potatoes on the plane, and I know I've met that guy.
That's fun. I know it was. I think I was on a flight once when Faith Like Potatoes was showing on the actual flight, but I was in economy class. So it's not all
We get
sunshine and
very
roses.
familiar with that for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so having looked at that, now you talked about Greg, because Greg and John do a lot of work together. And
Yeah.
currently they're in LA.
Yeah.
Kind of digging into some possibilities that they can bring back here to South Africa. And I love that kind of a thing, because
Yeah.
we're in a very dynamic mode, and we'll get into that in a few moments. But I did want to talk about how Greg was here as well,
Okay.
doing the movie Born to Win,
That's right. Yeah.
because that was mainly filmed
Yeah, in George. Yeah.
right here in this city.
Because it's a story from here.
And that's where we got familiar with him, because
Yeah.
because John recommended that he stay with us for a little bit at our house, and
Yeah.
we were thrilled about that while he was in here. And it's so good to see the South African connection
Yeah. Yeah.
in the film world.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what's interesting for me, it's good for me to hear that they want to take stuff from there or get stuff established there and bring it back here. Because I never left South Africa because I didn't like it. I just saw it, what was happening at the SABC and stuff like that. It just became increasingly difficult to imagine we could do anything of influence. It felt like we had to get out of here. And then, so for us to go to the U.S. was more a strategic move than it was because we didn't like it here. I mean, the idea was always to bring work back here, because I believe in the industry here. I believe in what's happening here, creating work for people and stuff like that. That was always the heart. We wanted to, like I said, have a strategic position. And so we saw it as South Africa was one point, the U.S. was one point, and Europe was one point. My wife's mother happened to have been born in England, so we could live there if we need to, but we both U.S. citizens, and we also South African citizens. So the strategy is slowly but surely unfolding, but we'll see how it goes. But after living there for 11 years, LA is an unbelievably expensive city, and something you'd be familiar with is no one has any idea how crippling medical costs are in the U.S. for anyone.
Yeah.
It's the thing that causes the most bankruptcy in the U.S. I don't know if you knew that, but it's nuts. So it seems like it makes more sense to establish ourselves here and then reach back there, as opposed to establish there and reach back here. So
I think that
that makes sense.
There's a lot to be said about that. It would be, there are many strategic reasons behind that. As somebody that didn't qualify for anything in America until I reached a certain age.
Right. So you understand it. Yeah.
Yeah, it starts to make a whole lot of sense, because it came up the other day in anticipation of a trip to the United States. The whole medical thing came up, and how are you going to take care of yourself if something does happen to you, which did happen on one of the trips I took to the United States, and my blood pressure began to spike.
Right.
So we begin to understand those are serious things.
Yeah, we had a friend who had, she had, what was the start of, she thought, flu or pneumonia or something, and she popped into the Irvine Medical Center, and the guy checked her, said, breathe, in the stethoscope, checked her blood pressure, open your mouth, That'll be $1,064. Thank you very much. 15,000 rand.
Oh my.
Fortunately, she had travel insurance, so they did cover it eventually, but it was a big fight to get it covered. Yeah. And then they said, when she was ready to leave, they said, well, if you pay right now, we'll give you 40% off. You know, it's like, if you pay us $700 or 600 and something dollars, it's still 10,000 rand for someone to check your breath and hear your heartbeat and say, yeah, I can just confirm that you do have flu. You know. But yeah, that's the kind of thing that, and so imagine you building a film industry, what kind of insurances you got to have versus what you could build over here.
Well, I like the kind of thinking that talks about, you know, kind of accentuate what is happening here, but at the same time, take advantage of what might be opening so that it can come here.
Yeah.
Because that's how we dream and that's how we work in this place. We look at our youth that my wife and I have been working with since 2001 in this city of over 1,000 kids, even as we speak, and we're thinking to ourselves now, what's the future of those kids? Well, we're looking at the film industry and we're saying, show anywhere from the unskilled to the semi-skilled to the skilled to the expert is all represented in the film industry. And which is also the reason why we started what we call the Garden Route Film Office here, which has now been launched and it is now in its first year of operation, and we're really enjoying this because we want to be in that place. And now we've had this brand new opportunity that's opening up, which has been hitting the news in recent times about Sallywood, and we have a 437 hectare piece of land.
Wow.
That we can accentuate the whole thing of film studios. And
how far is that from here?
It's right across from the mall that we passed when we came into the studio.
To like 10 minutes?
Yep.
If that. Yeah.
So if we get a chance, I'll take you right onto the site.
Yeah, I'd love to. Love to see it.
We'd love to show you how things are moving here. But what it does do, it says to the South African film development that there's a commitment coming from all across the board and from around the world, even as we talked about the New York Film Academy and the Beijing Film Academy and various other places that are
supporting
into
it,
this place.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting how the world turns, literally, because, you know, Rome was the center of the universe 2,000 years ago, and
very good point.
You know, and then it wasn't. The U.S. has been the center of the universe for quite a while. Don't know where it's going. You know, China's massive, India's massive, but everything, you know, and if we can open up a window of opportunity here to make it, you know, because I know one of the most important things on a movie set is the environment.
Yes.
It's the whole thing.
Yes.
It's from the minute I arrive on set, what is the environment like? Are people happy? Are the crew happy? Are they being taken care of? Are they being fed? Is the director, you know, did they write the scripts properly? Did they have enough drafts written? Did they have enough money to feel secure enough to do that? And all that stuff. And I just think that we can create ideal environments here where you can make great work. So
that's exciting. Now,
you know what I mean?
Very, very much so. And now along the way, you've been making marks in many different parts of the world, but one of the more recent ways that you've made a mark is with a book that you've come out with, and I see it sitting here, called The Vagabond.
Yeah, The Vagabond. Is Your Life Worth Living?
Now, what is this all about, and why did you write this?
So, just a real quick story. I was flying from London to Cannes to the MIP market in 2017 it was.
Wow.
And I was sitting next to a guy, and I told him, I said, look, when I was 17, I got lost at sea for 3 days with two of my friends, and a very unsavory character who I only found out 26 years later who he was, and that he had been arrested for bad stuff.
Oh,
and we were lost at sea for 3 days with this guy in 1989.
Wow.
And that boat's name was the Vagabond. And so a vagabond, just a quick definition, is someone who has a house but doesn't have a home. or they have not a temporary, everything's temporary. They have a job maybe, but they don't have a calling or a vocation. They might be doing, and they're constantly searching. They're always searching. And so my premise or philosophy is that all of us come into the world just like that. We all come into the world as vagabonds. We're all in the same boat. And then sometimes God allows storms into your life in order to show you that and teach you some lessons. But at the same time, the very storms protect you from a greater danger you're not even aware of.
Wow.
So God's grace is in the storm
Yeah.
as well. But the storms also represent, as it does in the Bible, the raging of the world. And unfortunately, this is the time we live in. We live in that kind of world.
Yes.
And that's why it's wise to have him in your boat. But anyway, so that's the basic thing. So I told this guy I want to make a movie about this, and he said to me, look, here's the most important thing you must understand. If you write a script, someone can steal your story because they can just write a script about your story. But if you've written a book, it's IP. So the story becomes intellectual property, and they can't then just write any script about this book.
I love it.
So I thought, okay, let me write a book. But the funny thing was, when I started writing the book, I thought it was just going to be about the vagabond trip, and then it just turned to a memoir of my time in LA, because I realized that what happened to me in 1989 as a 17-year-old was happening to me again in LA as a 40-year-old.
Wow.
20 odd years later.
Wow.
And so God allowed me to be in some storms there as a vagabond, but at the same time those storms were protecting me from things that could have derailed the whole thing. So that's what this book is about. It's a memoir of how the life I thought would make me happy got burnt down, only to receive the life that I never want to let go.
Well, you're convicting me, Sir Frank Rautenbach, because I started writing a book
Yeah.
quite a few years ago, actually.
Yeah.
But in recent times, people have been telling me, and once again, you're coming here today, and they're telling me, Philip, you need to finish your story.
Yeah.
Because it's about also a memoir about a certain period of time, which happens to be when we met you.
Okay.
In the East London area.
Yeah.
And some of the storms of life that we've had to walk through, lessons learned, and some of the dramatic circumstances, like living in Umtata when the town is being shot up.
Yeah.
And,
Late 80s, yeah.
Yep. And I mean, it's some pretty dramatic stuff.
Yeah.
But there were certain lessons in the narrow way that were being illustrated to us at that point.
Yeah.
And God was trying to bring us into a place of wholesomeness and wholeness in our spirits, which could not have happened if it wasn't for those storms that you're talking about.
So I have a quote in the front of the book that's one of my favorite quotes. It's from a guy called Thomas Cranmer.
Oh,
And
yes.
just got to find it here real
From
quick.
Great Britain.
Yeah, that's right. He's 15 years. He was a theologian in the 15th century, and it says this. It says, God's love, so the kind of thing that'll die for you, give up heaven for you, that love will take you on journeys you do not wish to go, make you travel or use roads you do not wish to use, to take you to places you never wish to leave. Journeys you would never pick for yourself because you'd think it's a dumb idea. Roads you'd never travel down because you think they're too dangerous, or you would think, no, that's not a clever road to pick. Or why would I do that? What a detour. In order to take you to a place you never want to leave. And that's the thing. That's why, I mean, that to me is, he's a theologian, but that is a lot of theology summed up in one little idea. If you look at Joseph's life, if you look at David's life, you look at Moses' life, I mean, there's just every single one of them went on journeys they didn't wish to go on. They traveled by roads they wouldn't have picked, but they all got to places they never wanted to leave.
It's an amazing lesson for all of us to learn.
Yeah.
And I pray that many people will be touched by that.
Yeah, I hope so.
By bringing that out, because that is very, very special indeed.
Yeah.
I want to go back.
Yeah.
What was it like playing the role of Uncle Angus?
Angus Buchan. It was a roller coaster, to be honest. I mean, like I showed you earlier in my book, the first time I met Angus was I didn't know anything about him. I mean, at that point, I think he was quite a known guy in the farming circles of South Africa in particular.
Very much.
KwaZulu-Natal, but in general sense, I don't think people knew who he was. And so I sat down with them just to meet him, and literally the day before we started shooting. And I was cast 2 weeks before the movie started rolling. So it was, it was crazy. Yeah.
Well, that's crazy.
Yeah, I had very little time to prepare. So in order to try and catch up with prep, I thought, let me talk to him and just see, if I can pick up any mannerisms, or how does he hold his fork when he eats, or anything. Because the thing when you there's always one thing, I think personally, anyways, about a character that makes all the other things about the character click. And I think Helen Mirren said this about the Queen. She said, the minute I walked like the Queen, all of a sudden everything clicked.
Yep.
The minute I got her walk, I was good.
Yeah.
And with Angus, ironically, when I sat down with him, the first thing he said to me was like, my boy, if you're going to play me in a movie, the Lord's going to take you through fire. I just was like, jeez. That's
all the inflections are right there.
A nice thing to hear the first time. Sir, I tell you, sir. So
you got to get a sermon from a farmer, man.
That's right. Well, he just told me straight up. He said, that's it's been in my life. He took me through fires, and maybe that, and I wasn't sure. I thought, yeah, it's a 6-week shoot. Maybe it's going to be a tough shoot or whatever, But I think some people go, oh my gosh, didn't he curse you? And I'm like, no. Maybe he was just being prophetic, and just saying, and when God takes you through fires, it's kindness. It's like the crucible of fire, is to bring purity in your heart,
Absolutely.
not to take you down, in that sense.
Beautiful.
And so over the next 9 years, it literally was exactly what happened. It was like just everything burnt down, that was false in my life. I think, when we're young, we get wounded. Everybody gets wounded. We come into this world broken. We live in a broken world, and we have a devil and an enemy that hates us. And the combination of those three things, at some percentage or whatever, brings a cocktail of hurt into your life. And then you go, okay, what am I gifted at, or what am I good at? How do I defend it? And we all have different personalities in how we defend it. And then we spend our lives defending it. But in the process, this false version of who you really are, it gets built up because, like many psychologists say, kids are narcissistic, and most of us don't grow out of it. Yeah. And so, and narcissism in that context is just the world revolves around me, and I'm just trying to protect myself. So I think what happens is we try and build up this security village around us of, I'm okay, world, this is me. And God's going, you know what, you're so much more than that. And I've got to allow that to burn down so that you can see the falseness for what it is.
Yeah.
And then you will rely on me.
Yeah.
And I will bring forth life in you that you never imagined. I will take you to a place you never want to leave. And so I think Faith Like Potatoes was the start of that journey, a 9-year journey for me, maybe 10 years of that journey. Actually, at exactly 10 years in 2016 was when I felt like God spoke to me on August 3rd, 2016, and said, you're free to go.
Wow.
And that was from March 2006. So it was about a 10-year. And that's what a memoir is. You see, a memoir is not a biography. A biography is information. I was born here, I went to this school, I did this and that. A memoir is one thing that happened. It's like a movie. It's an inciting incident.
You bet.
One thing that changed everything. And once you go through that door, it's never the same again. And so this book is that's what it is. It's a memoir of redemption. I love what N.T. Wright, he's a theologian from England, an Anglican theologian, and he said this. He said, redemption is not scrapping that which is there and starting over again, but rather it's setting at liberty that which became enslaved. So when God looks at you or me or anybody, he doesn't go, oh gosh, what a mistake I made. I should scrap this and start again. He goes, no, I long for you to be free from that which enslaves you so that you can become the thing I made you to be. If that makes sense. So this book is that story.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's going to get me to get into that story very, very quickly.
That's right.
Because I think no matter how old you are, that resonates with no matter what your age is, because it just says that there's a further process
Yep.
from what I could see
Oh yeah.
that we're all getting ready for. And as Uncle Angus said, there's never a cessation of the fire.
No.
There's always something going on.
Yeah, it's like I can't remember the theologian who said it, but he put it so brilliantly, and he said this. He said the Bible is always in three tenses. You have been saved, you're being saved, and you shall be saved.
Yep.
You know, and until the shall be saved
I like that.
has happened,
Yeah.
the first two are still in play. And even when that has happened, you know what I mean? It's that's what redemption is. It's a setting free process. You know, what did Jesus say? What did Paul say about Jesus? He said it was for freedom that Christ has set us free.
Yes, quite right.
You know, freedom from what? Well, it's freedom from all the things that we attach ourselves to give us identity, security, worth, and value other than God, which is idolatry. It's the things we worship other than Him. You know, we don't, I'm going on a bit, but we don't get a choice. Even an atheist like David Foster Wallace would tell you, you don't have a choice of whether you worship or not. It's just, what are you worshiping?
Yeah.
And if it's anything other than God, there is no amount of evil that will see an end if you worship anything other than God.
Interesting. Some of the wisdom that you were referring to there kind of took me back to a word that my mother gave me when I was a kid and getting ready to go to Bible college and what have you. And she said, she looked at me with her very wise eyes and she just said, Philip, just remember, think of the privilege that is yours, that you get the opportunity to repent every day.
Wow.
It was such a positive thing.
Dude, it is.
And there's something about this whole changing mechanism that God puts us through, which
My
is
mercy is new every morning, right?
very.
Yeah. And it's interesting, in Caroline Leaf, I don't know if you know her, Dr. Caroline Leaf, so she talks about the brain. And she says there's new little brain stems or whatever it is, little nerve endings, I can't remember exactly, little pathways. She says every morning they're new. Every morning you have an opportunity to have a new mind.
Wow.
And she says, and she relates it to the scripture, and she's like, yep, it's even there in the DNA. It's even there in the physical, that God gives us these opportunities for redemption.
When you look at your life, obviously there's going to be lessons that you've learned when you're on the heights and lessons that you've learned when you've been in the depths. What are some of those lessons that you've learned?
When I sat in front of 2,700 people at the Toronto Film Festival, and they're all giving us a standing ovation, I was in a movie called The Bang Bang Club. And a Hollywood star, Ryan Philippe, was in it.
Gotcha.
Marlon Ackerman, she's a Hollywood star, she was in it. She's in the show Billions and a whole bunch of other things. And the three of us are standing on the stage, and there's 2,700 people in the Roy Thompson Hall in Canada clapping their hands, giving us a standing ovation. Watch the movie, clap their hands. My big agents, WME, slapping me on the back. Frank, great job, buddy, great job. And in my heart of hearts, I'm fearing that if this is all over, everybody will see I'm a fraud. And I'm not secure because my identity is in that of being a movie star. And I'm going, if this ever goes away, I'm screwed. What do I build my life on? And at that point, I'd been a Christian for almost 20 years.
Wow.
No idea that was why I was feeling as uncomfortable as I was feeling. And I was looking at the screen. I'll never forget it. I had this big scene where I'm in a bar and I just own the scene with this guy, and it's a good scene. And yet in that moment, I'm going, oh my gosh, is that good enough? Was there enough salt in the food? Was there too much salt in the food? I was like a chef panicking about the food he's sending out. And it was a good scene, but I wasn't secure, and I wanted it to be even better than what it was, and it was good. It didn't need to be any different.
Wow.
And very short while after that, is maybe, I don't know, year or a bit. Yeah, it was about a year and a bit. After that, I find myself, reputation gone, all the money gone. We'd like Job, we'd lost everything.
Yep.
And I'm sitting in the front seat of a cab 2 days after my 40th birthday.
Wow.
And I'm thinking to myself, I have a university degree in economics and industrial psychology. I've had over 1,000 episodes of TV. I've had movies that have gone worldwide. I've owned shares, I've owned homes, I've owned cars, I've owned everything. And here I sit in this cab and I have nothing left. How did that happen? How did someone like me end up in this lowly seat? And
Powerful.
and my chest closes up. And a friend of mine who's a musician, his CD happened to be in my car, and as I turned the car on, his song started playing. His song's name's Tall Angels. And the chorus goes, breathe, baby, breathe. Everything's going to be okay. God's tall angels are surrounding you. And as I sit there and I start feeling peace, I feel God speak to me. It's like, why are you feeling peace? And he goes, because your identity is not being in a cab driver. It's finally in me.
Wow.
So, so just remember this. You'll only have one status always, ever.
Yeah.
That of a humble servant. Whether you're a movie star, whether you're a cab driver, makes no whit of difference. If your identity is in me, it's a humble servant, and you can rest in that.
Bottom line.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so I think that was a big lesson I learned.
Wow.
Was it took me becoming a cab driver to really surrender my heart to having my identity in Him. You know.
If God called us as Christians to be the light of the world and the salt of the earth, how does that relate to everything that we're talking about here?
Well, you got to be salty. You know.
Nondescript.
Yeah, exactly. You got to be salty. And what I mean by salty is that you got to be different to the flavor of the world. You
Yes.
got to
Love
influence it. I find it hard to believe that your heart's surrendered if you are in life situations, no matter where you are, and people don't know you different. And I'm not talking about weird, different, because if you look at the Beatitudes,
Yes.
different to the world means this: it's not about me.
Yeah.
I lay myself down for you.
Yes.
I pay a price so that you can live. That to me is the salt.
Yes.
Not, I'm more holy, I keep the rules better than you,
Quite
I
right.
blah, blah, blah. Because the
Quite
problem is with that, morality then becomes an idol. Because then I go, because I'm more moral than you, I have more authority, you owe me, God. And you owe me other people because I kept the rules.
So God doesn't want us to judge anybody.
Well, I don't think it's a case of, I want to be careful with exactly how I would put that with judging people. I think He wants us to love people.
Yes.
That's what I mean. And I also think that Jesus said, don't listen to what people say. Look at the
Yes.
fruit on their tree. So in other words,
Yes.
don't be an idiot. Like when someone's bad, they're bad. You can see the fruit on the tree. So make plans to avoid that. I mean, even Jesus withdrew from situations because He knew the motivation was to kill Him. But when His time had come, he then engaged.
Submitted to it.
Yeah. So I think that's wise, but I think in terms of judging, I think after my little world burnt down and God exposed my heart for what it was, I say in my book, I mean, there's a line in my book which makes me still shudder because I realized that a large chunk of my Christianity was me soliciting God to help me worship my idolatry.
I've never heard anybody ever say that before.
How many times
powerful.
did I stand in church with my hands in the air, tears rolling over my cheeks, going, God, help me worship my idol better, because that's going to give me, security. And imagine my wife came to me and said, hey, babe, I love you. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. I'm so committed to you. I'll do anything for you. But I've met another guy, and I'd love to use all of your money and time and resources to help me have an affair with him, because then my life will have meaning, value, and security.
Good point.
And if that's shocking, well, then you should just go and read the book of Isaiah, where God says, this is how I feel. I'll dedicate an entire book of the Bible to how I feel when you guys do this to me.
Absolutely.
So anyway,
Awesome.
to me, being salt certainly means love. Yeah, Miroslav Volf is this a theologian from the Eastern Europe. I want to say the Middle East, but it's not the Middle East. It's Eastern
Yugoslavia or
Europe.
whatever.
Yeah, Miroslav Volf. Yeah, and all that. And he was there during the wars, and he was, saw what communism did. And he said, sometimes people say they believe in a God of love, meaning God loves everybody and He's never going to judge anybody and that kind of thing. And he's going, it's impossible to believe in a God of love if there's not a God of judgment. Because if there's a God of judgment, there's also a God of justice.
Yes.
And I don't believe you can fully say you love people if you don't believe in justice. Because one of the big things that God talks about at the end of time, He's going to set everything right. And the only way you can do that is if you bring justice to what was wrong.
Yes.
And so for me, part of being salt is the laying down of your life. But you can only do that if you believe God will set right what was done wrong. Like, for instance, in the Beatitudes, Jesus says, turn the other cheek.
Yes.
Or bless those who curse you. Or be kind to those who persecute you. Or, love your enemies. That only makes sense is if you have a father who says, I will set everything right. I will bring justice.
Yes.
He's not saying that's okay. He's just saying, do not perpetuate the hate,
Yes.
the violence,
Yes.
etc. So,
On that note, you just really jogged something in my memory there, and it was by the book by John Stott
Yeah.
back in the 1970s called The Christian Counterculture.
yeah,
God
there you
has
go.
called us to be an alternative society.
Correct.
I think that's a good way of putting everything
Yeah.
that you've been talking about. And
100%.
I just want to say thank you for giving us this time to be able to, once again, get into some really deep truths here today. And thanks for the wonderful thing and for the ministry that is provided
Yeah.
on the program today.
Yeah.
And talking about yourself. And
Yeah, well, thanks for
everything that's
having me.
happening.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I really hope that those kinds of conversations are going to be translated into stories that we put on the big screen, so that these things catch the heart.
We stand in total agreement, and we say thank you very, very much to Frank Rautenbach. And we just want to say bless you, and may you take the seed that has been here today, may you water it with prayer, go into the Word, talk it through with people that you know you can trust. And we just want to say bless you, and may the face of God just smile upon you in a very tangible way, and keep you in His mercy all the day long. Bye-bye for now.